Those are Navy men from the USS Tacoma, if I do believe. I've heard that she was in port hard by. And then, yes, very other Union batteries, and it looks like they are protected with a detachment of infantry soldiers of the 14th Brooklyn in their red trousers. They're known as Devil in Red Pants. They are a hard-fighting infantry unit. Before us is right here, we've got a group of those brave Virginians. Normally these lads are all mounted, but horses, of course, are very hard to come by, and you want to preserve horse flesh as much as possible. They're a very large target as well, very easy to take down. So thus, to preserve the horse flesh, these men on the ground have left their mounts back in camp under care of one of the soldiers. So they're missing a number of their soldiers out here, but they're also preserving the horses. They're keeping a few mounted, it does seem. If they need to, they'll bring the entire company up to mount these lads to do their maneuvering. But as of right now, it does seem they're holding off the enemy in open order, in skirmish formation, planning to make it so the enemy can't easily advance toward them. The artillery's having a hard time with it. They've got to figure out the range of the lads. Oh, we've got Confederate infantry taking the field as of right now. The artillery, that's what they're looking for. Cavalry soldiers have now deployed off to the flank. They're protecting the sides of the army, keeping the enemy from getting on the sides of their men. It looks as they're opposed with that company of riflemen. I believe those are soldiers. Yes, those are Hiram Berdan soldiers. The 1st and 2nd U.S. sharpshooters, known as Berdan sharpshooters. They wear the green uniforms as an indication that they're a rifle company. Those lads have some very advanced technology, firing the Sharps rifle. They're going to do what they can to harass the infantry on their side, but the infantry, they seem determined to take out those guns. They've closed to about 300 yards or so. A bit out of range for the artillery, but far too close for comfort. Now the artillery, they're aiming a bit high, it does seem. The trick with an artillery piece, they've got to calculate how many seconds the enemy is from them, and they'll fire something known as spherical case. So if they're shooting at a target, a solid target, a fort or a wall, they would fire a solid shot, basically about that's probably, I believe that's a 6-pounder. So it would be a 6-pound solid cast iron cannonball. But that's great against forts, against ships, not against infantry. Against infantry, they're going to fire something known as spherical case. It was invented by an Englishman by the name of Henry Shrapnel, and it's basically a hollowed out cannonball that has a gunpowder charge. They're trying to calculate how many seconds the enemy is from them, that hollow cannonball to go and detonate right in front, above, or best, right in the midst of their foe. And thus, tremendous casualties from the shards of that exploding cannonball. In fact, the lads call that shrapnel. Oh dear, it does seem for the poor lads in grey. Their worst nightmare has taken place. The enemy has not flanked them, but got him fully in their rear. And I don't know as they know that. I believe those are soldiers right far from home and suffering greatly in the heat. Those are 2 soldiers with 20th Maine. No doubt they've never felt heat like this. Responding against them. Oh, it looks to be soldiers of South Carolina. Those lads have been in this fight for some time. They're not likely to give ground easy. We've got a company of Irish coming up there. Those are the Irish Gospel Teams out of Georgia, parading directly in our front on the right-hand side here. Backing them up, I do believe that is the 15th Alabama. Oh, things are not looking good for the Southern Brethren here. Getting hit from both sides, and now forced to essentially hold still, letting artillery gauge into that sweet spot. Oh no, the Virginian howitzer. Artillerists, since they have the great cannons, are not really heavily armed for individual combat, and the enemy is by far too close to them. Looks as though a few of private, and on average, they're about a .58 caliber. So over half an inch in diameter. And if it strikes something, it'll flatten out and become over an inch thick disc, as it were, which will tumble through the body. So if you get struck with one, it is not simply, oh, ow, I am hit, but more like, ow, I am missing my arm. If it strikes a bone, it'll shatter it. The only possible way to save a life, if the bone is shattered, is remove all the destroyed bone, which of course is amputation, which in and of itself is quite a difficult thing to survive. They brought on the federal colours. The most honourable position on the field of battle is to be able to carry the regiment's colours, and never do you want your flag to be taken by the enemy. That is the most disgraceful thing that you never live down. Looks there. It does seem the Confederates have managed to turn the Yankee line and get them all in one front. That was very aggressive maneuvering. Colour, a butternut sort. And by military regulations, the secondary colour, the stripes and trim on the coat, should be blue, denoting them as an infantry company. These lads have chosen to line theirs with black. Predominantly for a South Carolinian regiment, I would expect that. Not so much for a Georgian regiment, but England is charging. They're attempting to drive the Virginians back. They're close in range. Brooklyn's forces the Virginians to withdraw. Concentrated infantry fire. Cavalry soldiers, whether mounted or dismounted, they can't stand against that. Again, massive amounts of firepower, but short range only. And they're bringing in the Berdan sharpshooters as well. The Virginians are being forced back. They're bringing Alabama in again. Bugles relaying signals to the men as to what the higher command must do. Beginning this battle, one of two things may have happened. There may have been a plan as the soldiers drew together, but of course plans must needs change. Or it could be, it just so happened that the right units were at the right time and pushed a little bit too hard to lead to a general engagement. But regardless, the officers using fife, drum and bugle are continually communicating to their officers and therefore to the men as to what ought to happen. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it seems we are directly behind the lines as of right here. We're only a few hundred yards behind them. But from our vantage point, it looks so much closer, doesn't it, sir? I mean, it would seem like they're just a few feet in front of us. But we're fortunate we do have some distance there. But nonetheless, do keep your heads down. Watch out for ricochets. You watch closely, most of the lads are firing something known as a breech loader. A muzzle loader, which loads from the front of the weapon, what is called the muzzle, thus muzzle loader, placing the round in from the front. Once powder and ball's placed in, the soldier parks it firmly to the back of the weapon and then places at the rear of the weapon, what is known as the breech. He will place a percussion cap. It's a sort of a copper or glass cap containing a filament of mercury that's highly unstable, and thus when impacted, detonate with a red hot spark. That red hot spark is shot right in the back of the weapon, igniting the powder to fire off that round at about 800 to 900 feet per second. But those soldiers in green opposing them, you'll notice their loading procedure quite an different. Those lads are carrying Sharps rifles. They're loading from the back of the weapon. And they don't wish their foes to get those weapons. You're going to see those Sharps rifles carried off, most certainly. We've got one from the ambulance corps directly before us here. So he is a private soldier, but he's been called off by the surgeon to aid in caring for the men. And as such, he has to have an indication that he's not a deserter. So thus, he wears the ambulance corps red armband to indicate that he's not a combatant and he is allowed to leave the lines. For any other soldier to leave the line, is desertion and therefore a capital offence, even if he should be leaving the line to aid a comrade. If your comrade is hit, you keep doing your duty as a soldier, keep marching. It is only those in the ambulance corps that have leave of caring for the wounded, and therefore they don't carry weapons. That is their job. Get the wounded to the assistant surgeon, who is no doubt hard by, just out of sight here, no doubt, and then from there to the surgeon for full care. The lads are holding well. And there you can see in both lines, all of them are dressed up in their very finest. Personally, for the simple fact, as infantry soldiers, which most of these lads are, anything they want to have, they have to carry with them. So you'll see many of the lads still sporting their packs because they will want to have a hot meal and a good blanket to sleep on come the conclusion of battle should they survive. A few of the lads have dropped off their packs knowing they're going into the fight, but they're hoping to get it back. Anything they take, they've got to take with them. But they've dressed up in their very finest, because you always do that when you're going to a funeral, especially that that funeral is your enemy's. You always wear your finest clothes then. As you can see at a quick easy glance, the Confederate supply chain is not what they desire it to be. The great majority of all the factories are in the north, so the north does not have too much difficulty in uniforming and equipping their men. These southerners, they're vastly outnumbered by about 3 to 4 times the amount of population in the north to the south, and again, the great majority of the factories, virtually all of them in truth, are up in the north. The south is doing all they can. On paper, this war should have lasted 90 days or less. We're going on 3 years now and the southerners are still holding that line. But I have noticed something which seems to be a pending doom for the southerners. It does seem every time we see a unit take the field and a lad goes down, the next time we see that unit, there's always that hole in that line of soldiers who are fallen to rise no more. For it seems every time we see a soldier go down, the next time we see them, they've brought another 10 or 20 or 30 new recruits for that regiment. They just keep coming. Their population is so large. And the north at this point, they're instituting a draft. Unless, of course, you have, I don't remember now if it's $300 or $500, but if you've got this vast sum of money, if you're not basically exceptionally wealthy, you could pay someone to go in your place in the draft. Otherwise, you have to enlist. So thus the north, again, no shortage of men. Immigrants, the most... One of the arguments the Southerns are saying, just like in the First War of Independence, there is great abhorrence to England, for England was bringing over German mercenaries to fight against the people in this country. They said another proof King George III was a tyrant. Well, now in this, the Second War of Independence, you've got whole regiments of foreign-born soldiers, both in Germany, Scotland, Ireland, those who have never set foot on this soil before, but now coming over and donning the blue uniforms to fight against their southern brethren. Well, for every one of these lads in grey, for the most part, they are all native born here. Their families go back potentially generations as well. So yet another reason why the Southerners are declaring that the North is acting as a tyrant, sending foreign-born soldiers against them. And the lads have taken a flying the corps colours, as well as the Confederate battle jack. So not a true Confederate flag at all, but rather a piece of it, if you will. The full Confederate flag originally was the battle jack, which you see on the pole there, and then the rest of the flag, that would be in the upper left-hand corner. The rest of the flag was simply a large red stripe on the top, white stripe in the middle, red stripe on the bottom. But it looked too much like a federal colour. Thus, they've gone through 2 other changes to try to get a flag that looks completely different. In the meantime, a lot of the Confederate units are taken to simply flying the Confederate battle jack just so they have some form of flag, though it is not an official rebel flag. Oh, the Confederates are pulling back, not in good order. That is not good, but it does seem the Virginians here. They're holding the line. They're moving in good order.
They're just starting. Oh, yeah. Going! Going!
Oh, and it stays a regular cannon. Oh, there's some skill of rifles right there. Those sharp rifles, those lads, if I'm understanding correctly, they're not even allowed to be in that unit unless they can hit a target at 500 yards. Oh, so this is a turkey shoot for those lads. And again, with one of the most advanced weapons, that breech-loading rifle. Oh, the one lad on the far end there has a repeater as well. You can load that thing up on Sunday and fire all week long.
Wonderful.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, let us have a moment of silence for the fallen. If I'm not mistaken, the bugler here will play a tune called Lights Out, a final call of the night in honour of the dead. It is fortunate, ladies and gentlemen, the lads are not using live rounds, but rather giving you a recreation of what it might have been like for the common soldier. Give them a round of applause as they reform the line. So while they're fighting for the north and the south, and no matter how big or how small the engagement, this gives you a very close-up view, as it were, to what it would be like for the common soldier. Now, there well could be hundreds of thousands engaged, but that would be miles stretching that way and miles stretching that way. For the common soldier, this is what you see, the manoeuvring and the unit directly in front of you. And of course, we use a scale distance. The artillery would of course be miles away, lobbing shells down on them. But for the sake of our reenactment, we have brought everyone closer to give you that up close and personal view. You get to see it as again, as a common soldier would indeed see it.